Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Top Michigan Republicans going under oath to give their version of what happened with a group of so-called fake electors after the 2020 election. We're glad you're with us for Local 4 News at 6. I'm Devin Skillion.
I'm Kimberly Gill, the former chair of the Michigan GOP and Michigan's former Secretary of State, taking the stand today in a preliminary exam involving the alleged plot to falsely claim Donald Trump won Michigan's 2020 electoral votes. Jacqueline Francis is live tonight with their testimony. Jacqueline.
Exactly 3 years after the fact, we're hearing what led up to a December 14th, 2020 meeting where the electors allegedly signed a falsified document saying that Donald Trump had won the election. It's day 2 of the preliminary exam for the 6 Michigan Republicans accused of being false electors in the 2020 election. The hearing took place in Lansing. The Michigan Attorney General's office brought charges against the group of Republicans who are accused of signing a certificate, falsely claiming that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. 2 prominent GOP members testified today. Former Michigan GOP Chair Laura Cox and former Michigan Secretary of State Terry Lynn Land, neither of whom are among those charged.
Do you recall making a Facebook post that the GOP is currently monitoring numerous irregularities that occurred with the counting and reporting of votes throughout the state of Michigan?
I don't recall the specifics, but I probably did.
Next up was Land, who was a 2020 GOP elector nominee but did not sign the allegedly forged document and was not present at the meeting.
I didn't have enough information to make a decision.
You didn't attend it?
I did not attend it.
Also to testify today was former GOP Communications Director Tony Zammit. 9 other Republicans whose preliminary exam will happen early next year. We'll let you know if these 6 go on to trial. Reporting live, Jacqueline Francis, Local 4.
Okay, Jacqueline, thank you.
U.S. military is confirming a Marine from Oakland County has died in an accident during a training exercise. Sergeant Matthew Bilski was of Royal Oak, was serving as a vehicle commander in an amphibious combat vehicle. He and his team were doing ground exercises at Camp Pendleton near San Diego earlier this week when their vehicle rolled over. 14 other people were hospitalized, though all of them are listed in good condition. The cause of that rollover accident is still under investigation. Sergeant Bilski had a decorated military career, earning 2 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals and amid the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, among others. In a statement, Bilski's commanding officer called him an outstanding Marine and a leader within his platoon.
General Motors is laying off hundreds of workers in the new year. The move will impact more than 1,300 employees across the state. We're told 945 of those jobs will be at the automaker's Orion Assembly Subsystems plant in Orion Township. The cuts will begin January 15th, according to a warn notice filed with the state. GM says it will offer impacted UAW workers jobs elsewhere in the company, including at Factory Zero in Hamtramck. Meanwhile, GM's self-driving taxi unit is laying off nearly a quarter of its staff. Cruise is cutting 900 employees, or 24% of its 3,800-person workforce. Its fleet of so-called robo-taxis was grounded in October after an accident in San Francisco in which a pedestrian was dragged 20 feet by a Cruise vehicle after being struck by another vehicle. General Motors says today it supports the difficult decision by its Cruise subsidiary to cut jobs, believing it reflects a, quote, more deliberate path forward with safety as the North Star.
Every few months or so, we hear U.S. officials talk about the efforts to free Novi native Paul Whelan from imprisonment in Russia. Rarely do we hear from Russia's president on this specific matter. Sean Lay live with more on what Vladimir Putin has had to say and how Whelan's family is reacting to that. Everything Putin says on state TV, we know, Sean, has to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt.
And I couldn't wait, Devin, to speak with David Whelan in San Diego, Paul Whelan's brother, getting up every day thinking of his brother in that Russian prison work camp for the last 5 years. He got up this morning, he tells me, turned on the TV, and there's Vladimir Putin talking about his brother.
So I was surprised that Paul came up during it, but it was good to hear a little bit more information.
David Whelan, the brother of Paul Whelan, reacting today to Russian President Vladimir Putin being asked directly about Paul Whelan, now held in a Russian prison since 2018, charged with spying. Putin said he was in talks with the U.S. about a trade and eventual release.
Is the team convincing to you, like he was telling the truth?
Well, I think he was saying the same thing that we've known for about 2 years now. Back in 2021, President Putin and President Biden met in Geneva, and they opened up a channel to discuss prisoner exchanges. And so that channel has been used successfully twice and unsuccessfully 3 times. So I think that he was really just restating what everybody understood was the situation.
Putin said he did not refuse to return Americans held in Russia, and he wants to make a deal that would send Paul Whelan home. David Whelan saying Russia turned down the latest offer is actually a step in the right direction.
So the fact that the most recent one was rejected was actually a positive sign from my perspective, because at least we know that the Russians don't want that. But otherwise, I think the U.S. is still sort of fishing in the dark to figure out what it is that the Russians want.
Fishing in the dark to figure out what Russia wants in exchange for Paul Whelan and other Americans, like a Wall Street Journal reporter, Devin. What David Whelan is saying in there is that the U.S. has made offers, and there's been no response from the Russian government whatsoever. The response of a no was a positive, getting them to respond about Paul Whelan and making a step forward, hopefully to bring him home. Back to you.
We sure hope so. Such a long, long wait. All right, Sean.
Earlier today, a ribbon cutting took place in Detroit's North End at an old building that now has a new purpose. Our Kim DeGiulio shows us the work done by Cass Community Social Services and many volunteers to make this day possible.
It's a full production here as the halls and the rooms of the new Fox Center in Detroit's North End are full of workers trying to get this place move-in ready.
We have volunteers everywhere, painting and cleaning and installing things in addition to the general contractor and all his tradespeople.
The Fox Center will serve as a homeless shelter for Cass Community Social Services. Executive Director Reverend Faith Fowler says they can house up to 75 people here.
It just has a whole different feel, and we're not calling it a shelter. We're calling it a center for families, and that makes me very happy. I mean, people deserve their dignity.
But the most significant difference is the amount of rooms. There's 29, as the building once housed nuns. Cask manager Will White says these walls make all the difference.
My heart is jumping for joy, one, just because the way that our current facility is set up, it's a congregate style living. And so it's not the most ideal. You have things that happen like at night where you might have a baby crying all night. In a congregate style living, a baby crying all night means everyone else in the room is going to be woke. Their sleep is going to be interrupted.
Now each family will have privacy in their own space, even for large families.
Then we have a few larger rooms like this one that could accommodate easily a family of 10, and we get families with 10, unfortunately, occasionally.
Located on Webb and 14th Street, right near all of Cass's campus of services.
And the nice thing is that people who will reside here will be able to take advantage of anything else offered at Cass. So food and jobs and counseling.
And on top of that, it's right around the corner from the school, so the parents who have to travel to get their kids to school.
Kim DeGiulio, Local 4.
And the Fox Family Center will welcome its first tenants by the end of January. All right, Wayne State University is acknowledging the passing of an important figure in the school's history, someone who survived the Holocaust and became an American hero in World War II.
Guy Stern was born to a Jewish family in Germany, escaped Nazi rule as a teenager, moving to the U.S. and joining the Army after the attack on Pearl Harbor. He became one of the Ritchie Boys, which was a secret intelligence branch of the U.S. Army that gathered more than half of the intel on the Western Front. Stern won a Bronze Star for his method of mass interrogation of German prisoners.
After serving, he taught German studies at several universities and spent 12 years as provost of Wayne State. He founded the Academy of Scholars at Wayne State and even co-created an academic discipline known as Exile Studies. It highlights the contributions of authors, poets, playwrights, and others who've been forced to leave their birth country.
He retired in 2003, published his memoir in 2020. He was featured on 60 Minutes just last year. Guy Stern passed away on Pearl Harbor Day at the age of 101. What an extraordinary response to the life that he was
Poetic in
given.
itself
Sure
that he
was.
passed away
Yeah.
on that day.
Well, another very mild day by December standards.
And really beautiful. Love that we're seeing so much sunshine, Kim, and it's going to continue.
It will. We've got a little bit of cloudiness tomorrow afternoon, but otherwise we'll still see some sunshine. 41 in Detroit, 41 also in Ann Arbor, 42 in Lapeer, 41 in Monroe. Winds are not too bad. They're about 10 miles per hour in most spots. And we're in the low 40s in Mount Clemens and in Pontiac, 42 in Lapeer, 43 in Port Huron. Metro's at 41, and so is Monroe. It's warmer than it was yesterday by quite a bit. In fact, it's 11 degrees warmer right now than it was at 6 o'clock yesterday. 10 degrees warmer in Howell, 7 degrees warmer in Ann Arbor, and also out at the airport. And we'll be even warmer tomorrow as temperatures will make it in between hours. We'll get into the low 50s. We'll have an increase in clouds, and those clouds are going to stick around for part of the weekend. The warm temperatures will stick around as well, but then a big drop for Tuesday and the chance of a rain-snow mix. A couple changes in the forecast I'll tell you about in a few minutes.